Have you ever wondered why a woman who once looked at her husband with eyes full of love now seems distant, even carrying resentment in her heart? Why do so many marriages that begin with passion and devotion slowly cool down over the years, turning into distance and silence? This is a painful question that shocks many, especially when they realize it is happening right inside their own home. The truth is, what we often assume to be just the law of aging actually comes from deeper reasons. With more than 20 years of observing and studying relationships, I can assure you women do not suddenly stop caring. What happens is a slow erosion, needs being ignored, sadness left unspoken, sacrifices that go unrecognized. Those small cracks over time grow larger and begin to threaten the very foundation of marriage. I know this is a reality that breaks many hearts. Perhaps you have noticed your wife laughing less, showing less patience, or giving you looks that are no longer warm. Perhaps you feel that no matter how hard you try, you cannot reach her heart the way you once did. But here is the good news: as long as you start with understanding, the door to change is never completely closed. In this video, we will uncover 7 deep reasons why women often grow resentful toward their husbands in later years. Truths rarely spoken about at the dinner table, yet silently shaping the destiny of countless marriages. More importantly, I will show you how to recognize these patterns, face them, and begin to repair the bond while there is still time. Stay with me until the end, because once you understand the roots of this distance, you will not only find the answer to why, but also hold in your hands the hope and the tools to rekindle love even after decades together. 1. The drying up of emotional connection. In the early years of marriage, couples are often filled with laughter, painting dreams together, sharing even the smallest joys. At that time, just one glance was enough for both to understand each other. But as the years pass, busyness and routine gradually replace meaningful conversations. The connection that was once the glue binding two people slowly dries up, leaving a quiet emptiness in a woman's heart. Many men believe that simply being present, providing financially, and keeping the household stable is enough. But for women, physical presence can never replace emotional presence. They need to be listened to. They need a hand to hold in the late afternoon. They need a caring question like, "How are you feeling today?" Small things like that are what truly nourish their hearts. I have spoken with many women in their 60s and 70s who told me that what hurt them most was not material shortage, but the feeling of being forgotten in their own home. When laughter stops and conversations fade away, they feel invisible even while sitting right next to the person they married. The encouraging truth is that even when the bond seems broken, it can be restored. A husband only needs to pause to relearn how to listen, to show care as he once did. Sometimes, just a gentle touch or an unhurried conversation is enough to open the door to connection that has long been closed. Love does not truly die in silence, it merely falls asleep, and it can be awakened again through sincerity and small daily efforts. 2. The burden of imbalance. In many families, the wife is the invisible pillar. She prepares every meal, cares for the children, cleans the home, remembers every important date, and sometimes even carries the responsibility of caring for elderly parents. Each of these tasks seems small, but together they create a heavy burden stretching across decades. At first, many women accept this role as part of love and responsibility, but as the years go by, these quiet sacrifices are rarely acknowledged. The husband may take pride in working hard at his job, while the wife silently carries a lifetime of unpaid labor. By the time she reaches old age and her health begins to decline, she realizes that she has given too much, yet received very little sharing in return. I once heard a woman in her 70s say, "I have cooked thousands of meals, washed mountains of clothes, and cared for the entire family since I was young. But now that I am weak, I realize no one has ever truly asked, 'Mom, Grandma, or wife, are you tired?'" That feeling of being taken for granted weighs heavily on her heart, often turning into bitterness. What is striking here is that the injustice is not only about who did more, but about the lack of recognition. A word of thanks, a small act of sharing, or simply cooking a meal together. Sometimes those small gestures are enough to ease decades of fatigue. The truth is, women do not expect their husbands to take over every task. What they long for is a true partner, someone who sees their efforts and is willing to join hands. When balance is restored, love follows, because marriage is not a relationship of master and servant, but a journey of two people carrying the weight of life together and honoring one another. 3. Sacrifices that go unappreciated. Behind every peaceful family are the dreams women have quietly set aside. How many gave up their own ambitions, a career they loved, a passion for art, or even just the chance for personal growth, so they could focus on their husband and children? At first, these sacrifices may have felt like an expression of love. But over time, when they are not recognized, they become scars that do not heal easily. Imagine a wife who spent her youth raising children instead of pursuing a career like her peers. Years later, when she reflects back, she does not regret choosing her family, but deep down she feels pain because she has never heard a genuine thank you from her husband. That sense of having every effort treated as an obligation can turn even the happiest memories into silent sadness. This is not because women are weak or crave constant praise. It is simply because all human beings have a need for recognition. A sincere compliment, an appreciative hug, or even just the words, "I know you sacrifice so much for us," can carry more power than any material gift. I once heard an elderly woman in her 80s confess that her greatest regret was not giving up her dream of becoming a teacher, but that in decades of marriage her husband had never once said, "I am proud of you." That silence was not only her personal sadness, but also the unspoken voice of countless women. The good news is that it is never too late to make things right. A husband who pauses, looks into his wife's eyes, and acknowledges what she has done can shorten years of distance in an instant. Love is not only nourished by presence, but also by gratitude. And when gratitude is spoken, sacrifices are no longer scars, they become a shared source of pride. 4. Silence in communication. One of the most dangerous warning signs in marriage is not loud arguments, but silence. In the early years, couples often talked endlessly, sharing dreams, telling each other about their day, even debating passionately. But as time passes, those conversations are replaced by short practical exchanges: what to eat for dinner, which bill to pay, or what chore needs doing. At first glance, this silence can be mistaken for peace. But for women, silence often means they are no longer seen, no longer heard. They long for real conversations, where emotions are shared, sadness is understood, and dreams are still alive. When that disappears, they feel as though they are living beside a stranger rather than a life partner. I once heard a 70-year-old woman say, "In the past, every long car ride was filled with laughter and stories between us. Now it is just silence. He thinks it is peaceful, but to me it is loneliness." That story shows us that distance in a marriage does not come from one big event, but from thousands of small moments without words. The hopeful truth is that silence does not have to be the end. Even small conversations about an old memory, a simple joy, or a plan for tomorrow can rebuild the bridge between two hearts. What matters is not how much you talk, but how honest and attentive you are when you do. Marriage only truly lives when words between two people are alive. And sometimes all it takes is one simple question. What do you think to reignite a flame of connection that seemed long gone? I once heard a woman in her 70s share, "In the past, every long car ride was a chance for my husband and me to talk and laugh together. Now, an entire trip passes in silence. He believes that silence is comfortable, but to me, it feels like loneliness." That story shows us that distance in marriage does not usually come from one big event, but from thousands of small moments where words have disappeared. The good news is that silence does not have to be the final chapter. Even the smallest conversations about an old memory, a simple joy, or a plan for tomorrow can become a bridge to reconnect two hearts. What matters is not how much you say, but how sincerely you speak and how deeply you listen. Marriage only stays alive when the language between two people stays alive. And sometimes just beginning with a simple question like, "What do you think can reignite the flame of connection that seemed to have faded long ago?" 5. The loss of physical intimacy. There is an uncomfortable truth that few couples want to admit. Many marriages do not collapse because of money, problems, or major arguments. but because of the disappearance of a simple touch. The hugs that once came naturally, the goodnight kisses that once felt automatic, slowly vanish under the weight of age, stress, and neglect. When that physical closeness disappears, love no longer feels warm, it turns cold, as if two roommates are simply sharing the same roof. For women, physical intimacy is not only about what happens in the bedroom, it is an unspoken message that says, "You still matter, you are still beautiful, you are still desired." When holding hands in public or giving a spontaneous hug no longer happens, many women begin to feel unloved. That feeling over time creates silent cracks in the heart. I once heard a woman in her 60s confess, "What I miss most is not the vacations or the expensive gifts, but the way he used to hold my hand when we crossed the street. Now, even a single touch is rare." That simple statement is like a deep cut, reminding us that the value of physical closeness goes far beyond what we usually think. The hopeful truth is that warmth can always be rekindled, no matter how old you are. A hug that lasts longer than usual, a surprise kiss, or simply sitting close together on the couch can all become healing medicine. Love is not only spoken in words, it is felt through every touch, every small gesture, and sometimes, just one simple action is enough to remind a woman, "In my eyes, you are still the only one." 6. Differences in lifestyle and interests. When they are young, couples are often bound together by shared responsibilities, raising children, paying for the home-building careers. Those common goals unintentionally keep them walking in step with each other. But when the children grow up and responsibilities fade, the small differences that once seemed trivial can grow into walls that feel impossible to climb. One partner may long to go out, explore, and find joy in new experiences. The other may prefer to stay home in the same chair, repeating the same habits day after day. For women, that difference in rhythm feels like living two parallel lives, one full of energy, the other trapped in stillness. And when there is no longer companionship, they can feel deeply lonely even within their own home. I once met a 77-year-old woman who told me, "I love gardening, attending community events, and meeting friends. But my husband just stays at home and never wants to go anywhere. I invite him many times, but he always says, 'You go, I will stay here.' Sometimes I feel like I am living alone, even though he is right beside me." That story reflects the loneliness many older women carry. They do not only need love, they need a partner to create new memories with. When differences turn into distance, marriage can easily shift from companionship to mere coexistence. The truth is, it does not take much to break down that wall. A husband does not need to share every interest. He only needs to step a little outside his comfort zone, take a walk with his wife, attend a community gathering, or simply listen as she shares her excitement about something new. These small actions show willingness. And sometimes that willingness is the very thing women long for, a partner who is ready to walk alongside them, even if only for a short distance. 7. Wounds from the past that remain unhealed. People often say that time heals all wounds. But in marriage, that is not always true. Heated arguments, painful words, or a dream that was denied do not simply vanish. They remain in memory, quietly piling up, and as the years pass, they harden into scars. When people are young and busy, it is easy to brush things aside, thinking, "It is small, we will forget." But in later years, when there is more time to sit and reflect, those memories return vividly, sometimes sharper than ever. A dismissive remark from decades ago, a dream of studying or working that was crushed in a single moment. What may seem trivial to a husband can become for a wife a symbol of every time she was overlooked. I once heard an 80-year-old woman say, "Years ago, I wanted to go back to school, but he told me, 'No, just focus on the family.' I stayed silent and accepted it. But even now, whenever I think back, I still feel that it was a dream buried alive." That wound, though small, left a mark for decades, turning into a quiet bitterness. The truth is, time does not erase, it only covers. Without an apology, without a conversation where the pain is acknowledged, those wounds remain. And as the years pass, they dig deeper into the relationship. But there is hope. Even in old age, it is never too late to heal. A late apology still carries power. An honest and compassionate conversation can lighten a burden a woman has carried her entire life. When truth is acknowledged and the heart is heard, bitterness can turn into empathy. And sometimes, just one courageous moment of facing the past can bring love back to life. Many men, when they hear this, think, maybe my wife has changed. Maybe love has run out. But the truth is not that simple. Women do not grow cold without reason. Behind the anger, behind the silence, behind the short answers, there is usually a deeper longing to be loved, to be recognized, and to be valued as a true partner. In more than 20 years of working on content about life and marriage, I have spoken with many older women, and the clearest pattern I have seen is this: they do not expect perfection, they do not need wealth, and they do not demand grand gestures. What they want is simple, a timely thank you, a hug that comes without warning, or a caring question like, "How are you feeling today?" Simple acts, but they are what feed their hearts for a lifetime. Personally, I believe that love never truly dies. It only gets buried under the dust of time, of routine, and of wounds left unhealed. I have seen couples in their 60s, even their 70s, reconnect simply by learning to say the things they once left unsaid. One 75-year-old man told me, "It took me over 40 years to realize that my wife only wanted a compliment. When I finally told her, 'I am proud of you,' she cried like a young girl." That story gives me strong faith it is never too late. No one is ever too old to love again, to apologize, or to start over. And remember, healing does not require grand gestures. It begins with the smallest acts: holding her hand during a walk, sending a caring message during the day, or sharing a dinner where you put the phone away and truly listen. What may seem ordinary is actually the language of the heart, the very thing women have always longed for. I also want to share my personal perspective. Men are often so used to proving themselves through achievements, through work, and through financial responsibility. But for women, all of that becomes meaningless if it does not come with emotional presence. A man may build an entire fortune, but if he neglects his wife's heart, he can still lose his marriage. On the other hand, a sincere hug, a late apology, or a simple meal cooked together can sometimes be more precious than the most extravagant gifts. That is because marriage is not nourished by material things, but by emotions and understanding. So if you recognize yourself in these stories, do not assume it is too late to change. Begin today. Place your hand on your partner's hand and say thank you. Sit down together and truly listen. Or simply embrace her for no reason at all. You may be surprised at the power of these small gestures. Love in the end is not some miracle that arrives on its own. It is the result of repeated choices, choosing to appreciate instead of dismiss, choosing to listen instead of staying silent, choosing to hold hands instead of turning away. And believe me, even after decades together, if both of you decide to open your hearts, love can rise again, stronger, steadier, and more beautiful than ever before. If this message has touched your heart or made you reflect on your own relationship, I invite you to take the next step with us. Do not just let these words end here, turn them into action in your life. And if you found value today, please subscribe to this channel so you will not miss the next video. We have many more heartfelt conversations ahead, stories, insights, and guidance that can help you strengthen your marriage, protect your happiness, and rediscover the love that may have been buried under years of silence. Click the subscribe button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and join our growing community of people who believe that love is worth fighting for no matter your age. And do not forget to stay tuned for the next video. We will dive even deeper into the small daily habits that can transform your relationship in powerful ways. Because remember, love is not built in a single day, but it is renewed in every choice, every word, and every moment you decide to care.